when I actually got into seminary and I started reading the history of these two incredible people, Charles and Myrtle Fillmore, and how it came about, and that they were really called out by one of their employees. They're building this organization they called Unity based on these teachings of practical Christianity. And this is really early on. They're doing their publishing, and they have one of their employees is a Seventh-day Adventist. So they didn't force everyone to be Unity that was working with them. And they invite him to dinner, and he comes over to dinner. If you know, the Seventh-day Adventists are a vegetarian or vegan by and large. And so he doesn't eat meat. And here they sit down to dinner, and what comes to the table? It's like a pork roast or something like that. And he's just shocked. And it's so amazing. I love to just put myself in a moment in time.
Yeah.
To travel just sort of back time and to be in that room with them and to really see, here he's been with these two beautiful individuals working with them, and they're probably role models to him in a way with this incredible philosophy. And people are gathering around this idea that we respect all life and we're integrated with all life, and everything we do impacts every other aspect of life. And this message they've got is just so inclusive of all beings and all creatures. And then he sits down and there's a dead animal on the plate in front of him. And in the way I see it, like the story, see the story is he kind of comes unhinged, and he really, as it's written, he sort of does. He says, basically calls them out as hypocrites. How could you teach this message you're teaching and then be harming these beautifully innocent beings who can't really fight back, who can't speak for themselves? If you really think you're into oneness and you really respect all life, how could you be doing this? And he just calls them to task. And that's a shock for them. I mean, I really feel reading that, and we kind of grow your empathy. I really feel just the pain they felt or the shock they felt in that moment to be called out. Because it wasn't like, let's just gradually get into this. He's just like, boom, you hypocrites. And that's powerful for them. And that is an instantaneous shift in their lives. From like that moment on, they stop eating what they were referring to as flesh. They would start talking about the eating of flesh, which would be eating of meat, eating animals for food. And they started integrating that into the Unity teachings and writing that into the Unity theology and doctrine, that we don't do this, we don't eat these animals for food, but just the moment of sitting down and having this young, beautiful man just call them to task and say, where's your integrity to teach us this, but not be practicing it yourself? Is this a real shift in the organization that we don't talk about, I think, as often as it would really deserves, for how giant of a shift that was, to the point where they're starting to print vegan Bibles, maybe the first vegan Bibles ever that weren't bound in leather. They're opening up a vegan or a vegetarian restaurant in Kansas City, possibly one of the first vegetarian restaurants in the United States. And not only that, they have a Rolls-Royce limousine that they're driving around Kansas City, picking up business people to come eat at this vegetarian restaurant. I'm just like, they're so forward thinking in what they're doing and making possibly the first veggie dogs. It's like so ahead of their time in what they were doing. But it's not something we necessarily talk about that much.
Yeah, I think that incident, the employee's name, I think it was Harry Church. And I think he was like, what are all these dead things doing on the table? And I think about that and I go, I have never been that bold. And I wish I could be that bold. It is something that I know I have in me, but I think I'm not ready to hear the stuff that comes back. The Fillmores, though, were very high consciousness, enough to be able to hold that tension and not defend, but actually see something about themselves. And I think that takes a very high level of consciousness.